He's living temporarily in Tampa for several months due to a new job. His home club is the Orlando Conquerors, Club 1066. Conquerors is one of Florida's oldest and most decorated clubs. Where have I heard that before? I think that they have the mud wrestle with 1810. And it was founded April 3rd, 1953. Today, he's speaking from project number 8, the Get Comfortable with Visual Aids in the CC Manual, and his speech is entitled, Don't Listen. Please give RJ a warm welcome and do listen.
Don't listen. Two simple words that remain with me today as some of the best advice I have ever been given. Those two words were uttered to me by my mom. I was about 11 years old and I'd come home from school that day upset. Upset really doesn't describe how I felt. In fact, to an 11-year-old, I felt like everything I knew had just crumbled around me. You see, that day at school, every single student had been handed sealed envelopes. With this, there was clear instructions. Take these home, hand them straight to your parents, and no matter what, do not open them. This was the source of my distress. And what else for an 11-year-old could it be? It was my report card. The fact is, though, it wasn't my grades. I knew what my grades were. Being an 11-year-old and being in school that actually had grades maybe for 3-4 years that were getting letter grades at that point, I had worked tirelessly at maintaining a solid C average. And this report card was no different. I knew what my grades were. Out of the 8 classes I was taking, 7, I had hit my GPA. A C plus, a C minus, or just one of your average C's. Even in that 8th class, I knew what my grade was. So if it wasn't my grades, well, when I finished school that day, it would take me about 30 minutes to ride my bike home. As I mentioned, this was England, so this part's going to be hard to believe, but it was actually raining that day. So we had rain, an envelope, and an 11-year-old with a desire to know what's inside. Paper envelopes have a funny way of acting to water. They tend to accidentally rip, or I should say, carefully rip, in my case. On the way home, what 11-year-old wouldn't take a look? And I was one of those 11-year-olds. Now in England, the report cards took the shape of a 3x5 card. Every single class would be one sheet, and they'd all be stapled together. The comments were the piece that I wanted to see. Most of the card was handwritten comments, personal comments from the teacher about the student. And again, I was consistent if nothing else. Most of the comments on my report cards tend to read, if only he would apply himself just a little more. Maybe if he would do his homework. But it was Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis was my science teacher. Mr. Davis was an old man. To an 11-year-old, he could have been 111. Mr. Davis wasn't that tall, didn't have a whole lot of hair. What he did, he would comb over, and he would wear the same tweed jacket to school that had this musty smell. If Mr. Davis walked up behind you, you would know he was there. But Mr. Davis was passionate by science. He loved his subject, and he loved to teach and talk about science. And he instilled or awoke something in me. I looked up to Mr. Davis. I wanted to please Mr. Davis. He was somebody I respected. I actually applied myself in his class. I did more than the average and did a little bit more so I could get by. And I even did my homework. I had an A in his class. So I wanted to know what he said about me. I quickly found it. I have enjoyed having Rajiv in my class. That said, it has become clear to me throughout the year that his desire to pursue college and academics is not something I think we should encourage him to do. I don't believe he has the capacity to be successful and he lacks the discipline. I think instead it would be better if we encouraged him to learn a trade. Don't listen. It was hard as a 11-year-old not to listen. And Mr. Davis, I can guarantee, everyone in this room has met him at some point in their lives. The fact is, he has this uncanny ability to morph into people that we respect, people we look up to, people we want to please. If Mr. Davis was here today, I would say 2 degrees. Academic honors awards for both. I didn't exactly learn a manual trade. I'm not digging ditches on the side of the road for my profession. In fact, I'm a third of the way through a third degree in MBA. But Mr. Davis, as I mentioned, will surface throughout our lives. One of my last run-ins with Mr. Davis was when I took a new position, not the one that brought me here to Tampa. It was in Orlando a few years ago. And it was a management meeting, senior leadership of the company, including the owner, sitting around the table, and the conversation takes a turn towards marketing. I work in technology. So my first week, conversation on marketing, I'm doing a lot of listening, not talking. All of a sudden, the owner of the company just turns to me out of the blue and goes, "Well, RJ, you don't have to worry about this because we know English is not your forte." What? I was born in England. How can English not be my forte? I mean, I was embarrassed. But I can tell you, I did everything I can to make him eat those words over the years. But I worked for this gentleman. The fact is that those type of comments that people will make are wrong on so many levels. It's up to us if we want to listen to them. It is no different than meeting a Frenchman for the first time and just saying, "Well, you're from France, you have to know about wine." Or even somebody looking at myself and saying, "Well, you look Indian, so I guess you must work in a call center." But the fact is, my advice to everyone is those 2 simple words. And instead, listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and most of all, don't listen.